On the morning of my daughter's wedding, something happened that changed everything. Not the kind of change you prepare for, not the kind that arrives gently like a sunrise. No, this kind of change crashes into your life like a glass chandelier falling from the ceiling. Sudden, blinding, impossible to ignore. And the strange thing is, it began the day before. The day a billionaire pretended to be poor. I didn't know it at the time, none of us did. But that single day exposed a truth about my family that would explode in front of 200 guests, a live string quartet, and the man my daughter believed she was about to marry. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 56 years old. I'm a father before anything else, though most people know me as the founder of Mercer Logistics, a company large enough that newspapers sometimes call me ruthless, calculated, or, occasionally, brilliant. But fathers are different from businessmen. We see cracks others miss. We feel danger before it shows its face. And that instinct saved my daughter. But it nearly destroyed our family first. The morning everything broke. The wedding venue overlooked a lake that looked like polished silver in the early sunlight. Workers were setting up chairs in long rows, white roses everywhere, soft music testing through speakers. My daughter, Emily, had dreamed about this place since she was a teenager. She used to say, "Dad, when I get married, I want it to feel calm, not flashy, just peaceful." Emily was 27, strong, kind, and far more forgiving than I ever was. She worked at a nonprofit instead of joining my company, something I secretly admired. And the man she was marrying, Ryan Caldwell. Tall, charismatic, polite in the exact way that looks perfect in photographs. Everyone liked him. Everyone except me. I didn't hate him, not at first, but something about him always felt slightly rehearsed, like he had studied the role of perfect future husband. Still, Emily loved him. That mattered more than my instincts. At least, that's what I told myself. Until the morning of the wedding. I was standing alone near the dock when my phone buzzed. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. Just a short line. "You should know what happened yesterday." Then a video. I almost ignored it, but I didn't. And that decision changed everything. Who I am and why I don't ignore instincts. People assume billionaires are fearless. We're not. We're cautious because we've seen how fast things collapse. I grew up poor, not pretend poor, actually poor. My father drove trucks for 16 hours a day, and my mother worked nights cleaning offices. There were weeks when dinner was whatever we could stretch from a bag of rice. I built my company from a rented warehouse and a single delivery van. I remember every door slammed in my face. So when my daughter introduced Ryan 2 years ago, I paid attention. Emily had brought him to dinner. He shook my hand firmly. "Sir, I know you probably think I'm after your money." I raised an eyebrow. He smiled. "But I'm not." It was confident, disarming, almost too perfect. That was the first small flicker in my mind. Not proof, just a feeling. And over the next 2 years, little things kept feeding that feeling. Not enough to accuse him, but enough to keep my guard up. The event that was supposed to be perfect. Emily's wedding was meant to be simple but elegant. No media, no business partners, just family, close friends, and the people who mattered most. She had insisted, "I don't want this to feel like one of your corporate events, Dad." Fair enough. The ceremony was scheduled for sunset. The plan was simple. Emily would walk down the aisle. Ryan would be waiting. They would exchange vows. And afterward, we would celebrate until midnight. I had already prepared something else too, a surprise. After the ceremony, I intended to quietly transfer a trust to them, enough money to ensure Emily would always be secure. Ryan didn't know that. Emily didn't know either. But none of that mattered anymore, because the message on my phone was about to reveal something that made my stomach turn cold. The unease I couldn't explain. For months, I had small concerns. Ryan was charming, but selectively. He was kind when people were watching, but I noticed something subtle. The way he treated people he thought didn't matter. Valets, waiters, drivers, small things. Not cruelty, just indifference. Sometimes irritation. Once, after a dinner, I watched him snap at a hotel doorman who accidentally opened the wrong car. He smiled immediately afterward when Emily looked back, but I saw it, and my instincts whispered again, something's off. Still, Emily was happy, so I kept quiet, because love makes fathers compromise, until the day before the wedding, the day everything started unraveling. The day the billionaire became poor. The video in the message started playing. It was shaky, recorded on a phone, a street, rain, a man standing near a small cafe. That man was me, except not exactly. The clothes were old, worn jacket, baseball cap, cheap shoes. Yesterday morning, I had done something unusual, something I sometimes do when I want to understand how people behave when they think no one important is watching. I went out without security, without a driver, without my usual appearance, just a regular guy, pretending to be poor for a day. It sounds strange, I know, but wealth isolates you from reality. People act differently around money. I wanted to see the world without that filter. So I walked around town, stopped at small shops, sat in a cafe, and eventually, I ran into Ryan. That's when the video zoomed closer. My chest tightened, because I remembered that moment, but I hadn't realized someone else had filmed it. The unexpected ally. The message was from Marcus, one of my drivers, a quiet man who had worked for me for 8 years. He rarely spoke unless necessary, but he had always been loyal. The video continued. In it, I was standing outside the cafe, trying to buy a coffee with cash I'd purposely limited myself to. Then Ryan stepped out of the building across the street. He didn't recognize me. Of course he didn't. To him, I was just another struggling man. The video audio caught the conversation clearly. "Hey," I had said politely. "Do you know if there's an ATM nearby?" Ryan barely looked at me. Then he sighed. "No idea." I nodded. "All right, thanks." I turned to leave. Then he added something. Something that echoed in my head even now. "You might want to try getting a job instead of asking people for help." I had paused. Not angry, just observing. Then I said quietly, "I work plenty." He laughed. A short, dismissive laugh. "Sure you do." Then he walked away. At the time, I let it go. It wasn't the worst thing someone had said to me. But the video didn't end there, because Marcus had followed him afterward, and what came next made my hands shake. The secret discovery. The camera angle changed. Ryan was now talking on the phone. His voice was low, but clear. "Yeah," he said, laughing. "Another day and I'm basically set for life." A pause. Then, "No, her father's loaded. Way more than people think." My heart began pounding. Ryan kept talking. "I just have to make it through the wedding." Another pause. Then the words that made the lake behind the venue suddenly feel like ice. "And if something goes wrong, well, I've got a backup plan." Marcus's video zoomed slightly closer. Ryan lowered his voice further. "She has no idea about the account." Account? What account? My breathing slowed, the way it does when a storm is coming, because this was no longer a feeling. This was a warning. The observation that changed everything. I replayed the video 3 times. Then I called Marcus. "Where are you?" I asked. "At the venue," he said quietly. "Sir, I thought you should know." "You did the right thing." There was silence for a moment. Then Marcus said something unexpected. "That wasn't the only thing." My pulse spiked. "What do you mean?" "I followed him a bit longer yesterday," Marcus said. "And?" "He met someone." My grip tightened on the phone. "Who?" Marcus hesitated. "A lawyer." That word landed like thunder. The internal war, I stood at the edge of the dock watching the wedding chairs being arranged. Everything looked peaceful, beautiful, like a promise. But inside my mind, chaos. If Ryan was lying to Emily, if he was planning something, I had two choices: expose it or stay silent to avoid destroying her wedding day. My heart and my instincts collided. Fathers know this feeling, that moment when protecting your child means hurting them. I whispered to myself, please let this be nothing. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Emily came down the path toward me. She was glowing with excitement, her hair tied loosely, still hours before the ceremony. "Dad," she said, smiling, "why are you standing out here like a movie villain?" I forced a smile. "Just thinking." She looped her arm through mine. "Today's going to be perfect." Those words hurt more than anything, because I knew perfection had already shattered. But I still needed proof, real proof, not just suspicion and a video clip. So I made a decision. I would confront Ryan quietly before the ceremony, give him a chance to explain, and if my instincts were wrong, I would bury this forever. But if they weren't, then the truth would come out, no matter how ugly it became. The conversation that confirmed my worst fear. I found Ryan near the preparation hall. He looked confident, relaxed, like a man who believed everything was under control. "Ryan," I said. He smiled. "Daniel, big day." I studied his eyes carefully. "Walk with me." We stepped away from the guests, near the trees, away from the music. I showed him the video and watched his face. That moment told me everything, because guilt has a look, and I saw it instantly. The breakdown. His smile disappeared, his eyes darted. Then he forced a laugh. "Where did you get this?" "Answer the question," I said calmly. He ran a hand through his hair. "That doesn't mean anything." "Then explain the account." Silence, long enough to feel like a confession. Finally, he said something that confirmed my worst nightmare. "You wouldn't understand." That was the moment I realized the wedding could not go on. But the worst part? It wasn't even the account. The real truth was far worse, and it would soon explode in front of everyone. Sunset arrived. Guests filled the chairs. Music started. Emily walked toward the aisle. And I knew that in the next few minutes, I would either save her life or destroy one of the most important days she had ever dreamed about. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear the orchestra. Ryan stood at the altar, trying to look calm, but I saw the tension in his jaw. He knew what was coming. And when the officiant began speaking, I stepped forward and said the words no one expected to hear. "Stop the ceremony." Gasps spread through the crowd like a shockwave. Emily turned toward me, confused. "Dad, what are you doing?" My voice was steady, but inside I was breaking. "I'm protecting you." And then I told them everything. What the billionaire saw when he pretended to be poor, what Ryan said when he thought no one important was listening, and the secret account that proved this marriage wasn't about love. It was about money. But even then, I still didn't know the most shocking truth, because the lawyer Ryan met yesterday was preparing something far worse than fraud, something that would have trapped my daughter in a nightmare. And when that truth finally came out, even the guests who had doubted me went silent. The lawyer arrived 30 minutes later because I had already called him. Yes, I had investigated quickly, and what we discovered was chilling. Ryan had been planning to legally transfer assets from Emily into a joint structure immediately after the wedding, then move funds offshore. If something went wrong, he planned to disappear, with millions. Emily collapsed into tears. Not dramatic, not loud, just quiet, devastated silence, the kind that breaks a father's heart. Ryan tried to argue, tried to shout, but the truth had already surfaced, and once truth appears in daylight, it cannot be buried again. Consequences. The police became involved. Financial fraud investigations began. Guests left in stunned silence. The wedding ended before it ever truly began. But something else happened too. Emily hugged me hours later and whispered, "You saved me." Those 3 words were worth every scandal headline that followed. The aftermath. Months passed. Healing takes time. Trust even longer. Emily eventually found strength again, not quickly, but steadily. And one evening, sitting on the same dock where everything began, she said something I will never forget. "Dad, instincts are a kind of love, aren't they?" I looked out at the lake. "Yes," I said, "they are." What I learned. Sometimes protecting your family means becoming the villain in someone else's story. Sometimes love requires truth that hurts in the moment but saves a lifetime. And sometimes a billionaire pretending to be poor for a single day sees more honesty than money ever reveals. If I had ignored my instincts, my daughter's life might have been destroyed. But that morning, I chose the truth, and I would choose it again, every single time.